All right, good morning, everybody. It's still morning. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today, to be back in Wisconsin, actually. I myself grew up in Osseo, just over on 94, just down the road from Eau Claire. And it's super special for me personally to be back here. I actually, although I'm a proud graduate of Osseo and the University of Wisconsin-Madison, lifelong Wisconsinite, I currently have the privilege to continue my work on behalf of the state across the Atlantic in Germany. And coming back to things like this, it really does almost make me choke up, seeing just like the warm community that I am always reminded of being away and coming back. And it helps me also when I leave again to sell the state, because there's just these intangible things that we have that are really quite special. So I serve in WDC's Global Trade and Investment Division, where I do things like develop trade missions, work with foreign investors, and spend every single day thinking about ways to connect Wisconsin to the world. We also provide technical assistance and grants to businesses to help them access new markets. And so today in this panel, we're going to talk about global markets a little bit and how Wisconsinites, businesses, and the communities that you've been hearing from can embrace change in times of uncertainty, and how we can continue to look for opportunity in that uncertainty. Should we? I'd argue the answer is yes. Even if you may not see it, these things are everywhere and a part of every single one of our communities. Last year, Wisconsin firms exported over $27 billion worth of goods to 201 countries and customs territories, and imported more than $38 billion. I think you saw that data yesterday. Interesting, especially at the end of the year. We'll get into that. A significant part of our state's economy depends on the inputs and partnerships from around the globe. In my conversations with business owners, economic development agencies, and regional governments across Europe, I'm constantly reminded of what we have to offer and how interested the world is in being a part of it. I'm constantly reminded that at the same time, by the questions asked by folks across Europe, that there are things that we can't ignore, and we all see things in the headlines. That view across the Atlantic and here at home can feel somewhat fragmented and a little bit abstract. But trade isn't an abstract concept. It's lived and experienced by the people working on farms, factory floors, and at the checkout counter. Today, we'll hear from 3 Wisconsin stories that reflect both the fragility and the opportunity of the global marketplace. But before that, we have a special guest as well, which I'm very excited about. Just last week, I was actually in Ireland meeting with companies to discuss Wisconsin's business landscape. So our industries, our talent, what makes us competitive, and really trying to pitch Wisconsin. And those conversations underscored just really how similar Ireland and Wisconsin are. You know, you picture Ireland, you think of things like agriculture, but you might not think about their strong life science clusters. You know, it's just like here in Wisconsin. And also, most importantly, a commitment to innovation. Ireland is Wisconsin's 5th largest trading partner, actually, with companies like Kerry Group, a leading food nutrition company, employing nearly 2,000 people across the state. Our relationship is strong and growing. And so with that, I'm very pleased today, ahead of our panel, to welcome Tony Hayes, Vice President of Engineering, Industrial, and Clean Technologies at the Ireland Development Agency, who is based right here in the Midwest. Tony will share his perspective on the current situation in global politics and government, if he can, in a few minutes. We'll see how that goes. And also between the United States and Ireland, and how Wisconsin fits into that story. So, Tony, thanks for being here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to provide some brief perspective from an international point of view on the global trade and investment environment. But just firstly, a thank you to Rome, to Sam, to the WEDC team for the welcome here, the invite, the facilitation. It's great to be here in the great state of Wisconsin. I'm looking forward to picking up my few spotted cow on the way back to Chicago later, as always. But I appreciate the collegiality. As similar economic development practitioners, it's always great to kind of share notes and connect, but also explore the opportunities where there might be potential collaboration and further that two-way connection between Wisconsin and Ireland. So the theme today for the panel is unlocking opportunity and building resilience. And there are 2 things I think I'm happy to kind of connect on and talk about. Firstly, I think the very fact that this room is convened, sharing information, having discussions, that straight away is building opportunity because it's identifying it, it's looking at it, it's discussing at it. But through building resilience, and Ireland obviously has a similar population and kind of economy size, we know a lot about that too from a global trade perspective. I think the very fact that you're looking at internationalization and diversification bodes well to that and is key to building resilience. So briefly, just some scene setting to kind of build on what Rome mentioned. Ireland and the US have a significant and mutually beneficial trading relationship. Ireland, it's worth over €1 trillion, just to start with. Ireland is the 5th largest FDI investor into the United States. It's worth over $390 billion, over 200,000 employed, and 781 Irish companies. Furthermore, within the European context, of which Ireland is a committed member to the European Union, which has bode well and shown itself through the Brexit negotiations a number of years ago, and more recently through the tariff negotiations, which I'll touch on in a moment. It's also a huge value proposition for us as a source of investment, being part of that broader trade bloc and a huge market. So Ireland is actually second only to Germany in terms of EU members investing in the US, which I think is, it's a big statement for a small country. We're geographically the size of Indiana, and the Republic has a population of about 5.5 million. In terms then of the US would be the biggest trading and investment partner for Ireland. So it's a relationship that we value and put a lot of effort into. And as an example of that, and to speak to Rome's point, Ireland's presence here in the Midwest particularly, we're part of a number of Irish entities here in the Midwest. So based in Chicago, ourselves in IDA, we are responsible for supporting US and Wisconsin companies explore opportunities in Ireland and leverage there as a base to internationalize and serve European markets. We're also joined by our colleagues in the consulate who are lucky to have very deep and meaningful contacts, connections and relationships in Madison at a state level here in Wisconsin, and also our colleagues in Enterprise Ireland who are our counterparts in trade and export promotion. And as Rome mentioned, there's some great reference cases there. So on the Irish side, coming into Wisconsin, we've got Kerry Group who employ a couple hundred people in Beloit, Wisconsin, in their North American headquarters, and that's a real key center for them globally, and one which the state of Wisconsin, I know, has been, hugely supportive of in terms of that growth and development. For ourselves in IDA, we're proud to support a number of Wisconsin companies as part of their internationalization journey, and now, through a long number of years being established in Ireland, their broader success through having sites in Ireland. So just to name a couple of companies we work with, obviously Rockwell Automation, Johnson Controls, MGS Manufacturing, Snap-on, they're all broadly in the industrial space, which I work with and cover, but also, in financial services, Fiserv, and in the life sciences space, Epic out of Madison as well. So they are just a number of companies that are ultimately adding up to, 1,800 companies, of which 70% of those clients we have in Ireland are from North America. So, pretty strong integrated trading and investment relationship, which we're proud to support. In terms of bringing it back to kind of some perspectives and so on, obviously, tariffs are what's kind of dominating what has been otherwise a very turbulent couple of years when you think of COVID and geopolitical issues and geopolitical challenges. When it comes to tariff, it's been a pretty tricky time for us, and like any economic development agency, we've been rather vigilant. We acknowledge and respect the fact that the US can, will, and should, chart its own course, but the Irish perspective as a friend of the US and a close trading partner is that, tariffs are bad for both sides and bad for business. So, we're kind of looking to see, how we can kind of work around them and, where ultimately we can kind of move things along. Obviously, there's a lot of, circumstances and context that play into that. But some of the outcome that we're seeing, obviously it's uncertainty for companies on both sides of the Atlantic, in Ireland, in Wisconsin and elsewhere. There's a slowdown in investment sentiment, so we're not seeing projects stop necessarily, but that broader, enthusiasm around future investment, that's slowed down a bit more cautious, and that's obviously operating in the context of, inflationary and recessionary, possibility there as well. From a kind of a domestic market point of view, which I don't necessarily cover myself, Ireland obviously is a very agri-focused economy like Wisconsin is, so from certain produce and certain exports there's a threat there, and that's, I'm sure, other parts of Europe as well, who are negotiating under the same banner of the EU as ourselves, and here in the US also. So it's obviously different sector by sector. Interestingly, services have been unaffected. So you think of financial services or software or back office operations. It's been interesting to see that they haven't really been in scope in some of these considerations. So we're still seeing some traffic of projects in both directions in that regard. In terms of maybe some of the results or what's happening in response to the outcome, we're seeing a couple of things and just observations that I'm sure are evident in other jurisdictions, but particularly in our experience. We're seeing a renewed focus on in-region, for-region manufacturing. Obviously that tallies with the experience of COVID, supply chain disruption, and some of the other stuff I mentioned. But it's definitely a use of boon to companies when they're building in Europe for Europe. So we've seen that with some of the companies I've even mentioned. They might have a US facility here in Wisconsin serving the North American market, the same in Ireland to service the wider European market. So I think there's definitely, for those who haven't engaged in that, a direction of traffic to consider that kind of model. There's definitely a renewed interest and focus on diversification. When we think of, it being, as I said, a key focus in building resilience in any economy, it naturally comes up in this context. So, while the US is probably our most trusted, valuable, and integrated partner in terms of both trade and investment, naturally any country that's open and trading is considering how best to kind of, build on other partnerships and look at other sources of partnerships and investment also. And finally, another piece in that regard in terms of the recalibration, we're seeing a lot of companies reach out to us about incentives. We're seeing a lot of companies consider new models. We're seeing a lot of companies look at efficiencies they can drive through, consolidation or synergies within the groups and that kind of thing. So there's definitely a lot of internal traffic in our client companies and those we speak to, which is looking to basically bridge the gap between, where the tariffs land and where they see them as palatable, but also to mitigate some of that effect in the broader sense. Again, super high level, broad points. I'd be delighted to chat to anyone as part of a Q&A or a discussion over a cup of coffee afterwards. But from my perspective, we're here to help. We're not the guys setting policy. We are like our counterparts in any economic development agency, here to support a mutually beneficial two-way trade and investment partnership. So if there's anyone I can help with any questions about Ireland or broader themes brought up today, I'd be more than happy to speak to them at a later point. So thank you very much.